Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Imagine this. You're King David, maybe finally catching your breath after years on the run from King Saul.
Just settling into Ziklag.
Exactly. Then suddenly, this man arrives, straight from the battlefield, clothes torn, dust on his head. You know the signs.
Yeah, it means bad news. Really bad news.
And he brings news that just changes everything. Saul is dead.
And Jonathan, David's closest friend, also dead.
It's just unparalleled drama.
Yeah.
Right there, chapter 1, verse 1. It sets the stage for a completely new era.
It really does. And what's striking, like you said, is how fast the old order just collapses.
And David, despite everything he's been through, he's immediately thrust into this huge leadership vacuum.
It's a truly pivotal moment. It marks the definitive end of one era and, well, the forceful, often quite messy start of another.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're plunging headfirst into the rich, raw, and honestly, utterly compelling saga of King David's rise and reign, all drawn from the ancient text of 2 Samuel.
And this isn't just, dry ancient history.
Not at all.
It's a powerful story. It's packed with intense power struggles, very personal failures, incredible triumphs.
The full spectrum of human emotion, really.
Absolutely. Our mission today is to unpack those key moments in David's early kingship. We want to explore his, let's say, moral complexities.
Oh, definitely complex.
The dramatic betrayals, even within his own family, and the profound, sometimes tragic consequences of his choices.
We want to understand what made him such a central figure, revered, but also undeniably flawed.
And we'll be pulling everything directly from the ancient text you've given us. So think of this as your shortcut to understanding one of the most compelling and complicated leaders in history.
Okay, let's get right into that dramatic start. The shocking news of Saul's demise. David's in Ziklag, just back from dealing with the Amalekites.
Right, a local tribe he'd clashed with.
And on the third day, boom, this man shows up from Saul's camp. Torn clothes, dust on his head, the classic signs, deep grief, maybe distress.
It's a striking image. He falls down before David. It's respect, but maybe there's fear there too.
Could be. David asks, "Where have you come from?" The man says he escaped the Israelite camp.
And then the hammer drops. The men fled, many fell and died, and Saul and his son Jonathan are dead. Just like that.
Wow. But here's where it gets, really intriguing. David presses him. How do you know Saul and Jonathan are dead?
Good question. You need proof, right?
Exactly. And the Amalekite spins this tale. I happened to be on Mount Gilboa. Saw Saul leaning on his spear. He saw me, called me over. He said, "Stand over me and kill me. I'm in the throes of death, but still alive."
So the Amalekite claims he killed Saul at Saul's request.
That's his story. So I stood over him and killed him. I knew he couldn't survive. And I took the crown and the band from his arm and brought them here to my lord. He presents the royal insignia as proof.
It's quite a claim. Whether it's the full truth or, an opportunist trying to curry favor.
Right, we don't know for sure. But David's reaction is immediate. He and his men, they tear their clothes, they mourn, weep, fast all day for Saul, for Jonathan, for all of Israel.
It feels genuine. It's not just political theaters. It's a shared national grief. And displaying that is crucial for David right then.
But then comes this crucial moment, a real pivot. David turns to the Amalekite messenger and asks him, "Why were you not afraid to lift your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?"
The key phrase, the Lord's anointed.
And David doesn't hesitate. He orders one of his men, "Go, strike him down." And the Amalekite is executed. Right there.
Wow. Swift judgment.
What does that tell us about David's core values, literally as he's stepping towards the throne?
It tells us something profound, I think. It's about his understanding of divine authority. Saul was his enemy, relentlessly hunted him.
Made his life miserable for years.
Absolutely. But David still held this unwavering respect for the office, for the divine appointment of kingship. To lift a hand against the Lord's anointed that was crossing a line, it was an act against God himself.
So even if the killing seemingly benefits David,
he won't tolerate it. It sets an immediate tone. His reign will respect divine order above personal gain or vengeance. No vigilantism when it comes to God's appointed leaders.
And that grief, it wasn't just for show, it was personal, especially for Jonathan. The text says David composed this lament, the lament of the bow, and ordered it taught to the men of Judah. Why teach it?
Well, the lament itself is incredibly moving. "How the mighty have fallen," he cries. He praises Saul and Jonathan's unity, swifter than eagles, stronger than lions.
And that line about Jonathan.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
"I grieve for you, Jonathan, my brother. You were very dear to me. Your love for me was wonderful, more wonderful than that of women."
So teaching it wasn't just about expressing sadness.
No, it was more than that. It solidified David's image as a unifier, someone who honored the fallen king, his enemy, and his beloved friend. It helped bind the tribes together through shared sorrow and, importantly, respect for the past, even a troubled past. It's smart politics, but deeply felt too.
That really sets the stage. So Saul's gone. What's David's first strategic move towards actually becoming king?
He doesn't just rush in. First, he asks God, "Shall I go up to one of the towns of Judah?"
Okay.
And the Lord says, "Go up to Hebron." So he does. Takes his wives, his men, their families, and there the men of Judah anoint him king over Judah. Just Judah initially.
How long was he king just over Judah?
7 years and 6 months, according to the text. And notice that pattern, consulting God before acting, that becomes a hallmark for him, especially early on.
And almost immediately, he reaches out to the men of Jabesh Gilead, blesses them for burying Saul. Why them specifically?
Jabesh Gilead. They had a history with Saul. He'd rescued them early in his reign. They showed incredible loyalty by recovering and burying Saul's body after the battle.
So David honoring them?
It's incredibly fruit. He's honoring those who honored Saul. It shows he respects loyalty, even loyalty to his predecessor and rival. It signals unity, not conquest, an olive branch to Saul's potential loyalists.
Smart. But it's not a unified kingdom yet, is it? There's an immediate split.
Oh, absolutely not unified. Abner, who was the commander of Saul's army, a very powerful figure, he doesn't just roll over.
What does he do?
He takes Saul's surviving son, Ishbosheth, across the Jordan and makes him king over the rest of Israel. Gilead, Asher, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, basically everyone but Judah.
So now you have two kings, two houses.
Exactly. The house of Saul versus the house of David. And that sets the stage for a long, drawn-out period of civil war. It's not a clean transition at all.
And this conflict turns violent pretty quickly, right? There's this incident at Gibeon, the game.
Oh, the game. It's gruesome. Abner, leading Ishbosheth's forces, meets Joab, David's commander, at the pool of Gibeon. And Abner suggests, let's have some young men get up and fight hand-to-hand.
Like a contest to decide things.
Sort of a ritual combat, maybe? 12 men from Benjamin for Ishbosheth and 12 from David's side. They get up.
Yeah.
Each man grabs his opponent by the head and thrusts his dagger into the other side. They all fall down dead together, all 24 of them.
Terrific.
They call the place Helkath Hazarim, which means something like field of daggers or field of flint knives. It's a brutal, almost theatrical start to the fighting, and it immediately erupts into a much larger, fiercer battle.
And David's men win that day.
They do. Abner's forces are routed, but it underscores just how personal and bitter this civil war is right from the start.
And in that battle, we meet Asahel, Joab's brother. He's described as fleet-footed as a wild gazelle.
Yes, very fast, and he zeroes in on Abner, the enemy commander. He starts chasing him relentlessly.
But Abner is a seasoned warrior. He doesn't want to kill Joab's brother, does he?
No, he really tries to avoid it. He tells Asahel, "Turn aside. Why should I strike you down? How could I look your brother Joab in the face if I did?" He knows it will cause a blood feud.
But Asahel won't stop.
He refuses. So Abner, protecting himself, jabs backward with the butt end of his spear, and it goes right through Asahel. Kills him instantly. This moment, it's absolutely pivotal. Asahel's death creates this deep-seated need for vengeance in Joab. It's a seed that will grow and bear bitter fruit later on. It heavily influences Joab's future actions.
So the war drags on. The text says David grew stronger and stronger, while the house of Saul grew weaker and weaker. It seems inevitable, but then something personal shifts the balance.
Right. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, makes a huge mistake. He accuses Abner, his own commander, of sleeping with Rizpah.
Who is Rizpah?
She was one of Saul's concubines. In that culture, sleeping with a former king's concubine could be seen as making a claim to the throne.
So Ishbosheth is basically accusing Abner of treason, or at least ambition.
Exactly, and Abner is furious, absolutely enraged. He sees it as a deep insult after all his service to Saul's house.
And his reaction?
He essentially says, "Am I a dog's head of Judah? After all I've done for you, this is how you treat me? Fine. As the Lord has sworn to David, so I will do to him. Transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and establish David's throne over Israel and Judah."
Wow, so he defects, just like that.
It's a major turning point. Abner basically decides to throw his considerable weight behind David, justifying it, by citing God's promise. It's a power play, maybe using the insult as a pretext for a move he was already considering.
And David, ever the politician.
He sees the opportunity. But he doesn't just accept Abner unconditionally. He makes one specific demand first.
What do you choose?
You will not see my face unless you first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come.
Michal, David's first wife, Saul's daughter, who Saul had taken away and given to another man, Peltiel. Why was getting her back so important for David?
It's brilliant, really, on multiple levels. First, it reconnects him to Saul's lineage, strengthening his claim to the whole kingdom. Second, it's a public statement taking back what was rightfully his. Third, it undermines Ishbosheth even further.
And we get that little detail about her husband, Peltiel.
Following her, weeping, until Abner tells him to go home. It adds this layer of personal cost to these big political moves.
So Abner agrees. He gets Michal, and then he starts working behind the scenes.
He does. He negotiates with the elders of Israel, reminding them they'd wanted David as king before. He persuades the tribe of Benjamin, Saul's own tribe. He basically paves the way for unification under David.
It seems like everything is finally falling into place. Abner comes to David in Hebron. They make an agreement. David throws a feast. Peace is at hand.
It looks that way. Abner leaves in peace, but then
Joab returns.
Joab returns from a raid, hears that Abner was there, and David let him go peacefully, and Joab is absolutely livid.
Because of Asahel.
Because of Asahel, and maybe suspicion, too. Joab storms into David, accuses him of being naive, saying Abner was just spying.
Then David.
We don't get David's immediate reply to Joab, but Joab doesn't wait. He acts. Without David's knowledge, he sends messengers to bring Abner back.
Oh, no!
Abner returns, suspecting nothing. Joab takes him aside privately at the city gate, as if to talk.
And kills him.
Stabs him in the stomach, kills him. Explicitly, the text says, to avenge the blood of his brother Asahel.
This is huge. Abner was the key to unifying the kingdom peacefully. And Joab just murdered him. How does David react?
David reacts immediately and very publicly. He proclaims his innocence and the innocence of his kingdom before the Lord forever. He calls down a curse on Joab and his entire family line.
A curse?
Yes, listing specific afflictions, disease, famine, violent death that should plague Joab's house. He then leads the public mourning for Abner, ordering everyone, including Joab, to tear their clothes and lament. He fasts. He composes another lament for Abner.
Why such a strong public display?
He asked to distance himself from this murder. Abner came under safe conduct. This could destroy the fragile peace. David needs to show Israel that he wasn't behind this, that this was Joab acting alone out of vengeance. It's damage control, but it also seems genuinely motivated by his respect for Abner and the rules of war and diplomacy.
But it also reveals something about David's own power at this point, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. There's that fascinating, almost despairing line where David says, "And I today, though anointed king, am weak, and these sons of Zeruiah, Joab, and his brother Abishai are too strong for me."
He admits he can't fully control his own commander.
Exactly. It shows the limits of his power. Joab is essential to his military strength, but also dangerously independent and ruthless. David can curse him, but he seemingly can't remove him or punish him directly at this stage.
So Abner's death leaves Ishbosheth completely vulnerable.
His courage fails, the text says. The momentum is gone. And this leads to yet another assassination.
Not again.
Two of Ishbosheth's own captains, Rechab and Baanah, sneak into his house during his midday rest.
Right.
They stab him, cut off his head, and travel all night to bring it to David in Hebron.
Just like the Amalekite with Saul's crown, they must be expecting a reward.
They clearly are. They present the head, saying, "Here is the head of Ishbosheth. The Lord has avenged my lord the king this day on Saul and his offspring."
They think they're doing David a huge favor.
But David's response is exactly the same as with the Amalekite. Maybe even harsher. He's furious. He reminds them what he did to the man who claimed to kill Saul.
Right, he executed him.
David asks them, rhetorically, "How much more, when wicked men have killed an innocent man in his own house on his own bed, should I not now require his blood at your hand and rid the earth of you?"
And he does.
He orders their immediate execution. Their hands and feet are cut off, and their bodies are displayed publicly in Hebron. Ishbosheth's head, however, is treated with respect. It's buried in Abner's tomb.
Wow. Another powerful statement. No reward for treason or murder, even if it eliminates a rival. He's consistently reinforcing this principle of legitimacy.
Absolutely. It cements his moral authority even as he consolidates political power, and it works. With Ishbosheth gone, there's no one left from Saul's line with a credible claim.
So this finally paves the way for full unification.
It does. All the tribes of Israel now come to David at Hebron. They declare, "We are your own flesh and blood." They acknowledge his past leadership, God's promise about him shepherding Israel.
And they anoint him king over all Israel.
Yes. He's 30 years old when he begins to reign, and the text notes he reigned for 40 years in total, 7.5 in Hebron over Judah, and 33 in Jerusalem over all Israel and Judah.
Okay, so unifying the kingdom isn't enough. He needs a capital, and he chooses Jerusalem. Why there?
It was a brilliant strategic choice. Jerusalem at the time was held by the Jebusites, a Canaanite tribe. It wasn't strongly affiliated with any single Israelite tribe, north or south.
So neutral ground.
Exactly. Making it the capital wouldn't favor Judah over the northern tribes or vice versa. It helped unify the nation. Plus, it was strategically located and highly defensible.
The Jebusites famously taunted him,
Right.
saying even the blind and the lame could defend it.
They did, but David finds a way. The text mentions capturing it via the water shaft, some kind of tunnel or access point. Joab might have led that charge. David takes the fortress of Zion, and it becomes known as the City of David.
His power just keeps growing.
Immensely. The text explicitly says he became more and more powerful because the Lord God Almighty was with him. He even gets international recognition. Hiram, the king of Tyre, sends cedar logs, carpenters, and stonemasons to build David a palace.
This really feels like the peak, the zenith. He's unified the kingdom, established a capital, built a palace.
He's at the height of his political and military power, and his next big move is religious. Bringing the Ark of the Covenant, the symbol of God's presence, to his new capital, Jerusalem.
Right. To make Jerusalem not just the political center, but the religious center too.
Exactly. But the first attempt, it goes tragically wrong.
Ah, the story of Uzzah.
Yes. They're transporting the Ark on a new cart, pulled by oxen, which actually wasn't the prescribed way according to the law. The Levites were supposed to carry it on poles.
Okay, so procedural error from the start.
Seems like it. And when the oxen stumble, Uzzah, who's walking alongside, reaches out instinctively to steady the ark, to stop it from falling.
Seems like a reasonable thing to do.
From a human perspective, yes. But God's reaction is swift and severe. He strikes Uzzah down right there for his irreverent act. He dies beside the ark.
Wow, that seems incredibly harsh. What's the lesson there?
It's a stark lesson about the holiness and otherness of God. The ark represented God's literal presence, and it couldn't be treated casually, even with good intentions. There were specific rules for handling the sacred, and deviating from them, even instinctively, had dire consequences. It teaches David and Israel a profound respect, even fear, regarding God's presence.
David's reaction is interesting. He's angry, but also afraid.
Yes, both. He's angered by the Lord's outburst against Uzzah, but he's also terrified. He asks, how can the ark of the Lord ever come to me? He realizes he doesn't fully grasp the gravity of what he's dealing with.
So he abandons the attempt.
Temporarily. He diverts the ark to the nearby house of a man named Obed-Edom, who is a Gittite, maybe a Philistine. It stays there for 3 months.
And what happens while it's there?
The Lord blesses Obed-Edom and his entire household, massively. Word gets back to David.
Ah, so the ark isn't just dangerous, it's also a source of blessing when treated rightly.
Exactly. This motivates David to try again. And this time, he does it differently, with proper reverence, sacrifices, and following the correct procedures involving the Levites.
And this time it's successful. And David's reaction is quite something.
It's pure joy. He's described as dancing before the Lord with all his might, wearing only a linen ephod.
An ephod, like a simple priestly garment, not royal robes.
Right. It signifies humility, stripping away his royal status before God. He's celebrating, shouting, sounding the ram's horn. It's unrestrained, exuberant worship.
But not everyone appreciates his enthusiasm. Michal, Saul's daughter, his wife.
She sees him from a window, leaping and dancing, and the text says she despised him in her heart.
Why? What was her issue?
When he gets back, she confronts him sarcastically. How the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, disrobing in the sight of the slave girls of his servants as any vulgar fellow would. She saw his public, unrestrained worship as undignified, unkingly, vulgar even.
It's a clash of perspectives on worship, isn't it? Royal decorum versus passionate devotion.
Absolutely. David's response is sharp. He says, "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father or anyone from his house when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord. I will become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes. But by these slave girls you spoke of, I will be held in honor."
He basically says his worship is for God, not for public appearances, and he doesn't care if it looks foolish to her.
Precisely. And the narrative adds a final sad note. And Michal, daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death.
A lasting consequence of her scorn, perhaps, or just a tragic end to that part of the story. It definitely marks a break from Saul's line.
Symbolically, yes, just as David's own dynasty is about to be solidified.
Right, because after the ark is settled in Jerusalem, David gets another idea. He's living in his palace of cedar.
And the ark is still in a tent.
He feels it's not right. He tells Nathan the prophet, "Here I am, living in a house of cedar, while the ark of God remains in a tent." He wants to build God a permanent house, a temple.
Seems like a pious, reasonable desire for a king at the height of his power.
But then comes this unexpected twist. Nathan initially says, "Go, do all that is in your heart, for the Lord is with you." But that same night,
God speaks to Nathan with a different message, a really significant one.
God says no.
Essentially, yes. God tells Nathan to ask David, "Are you the one to build me a house to dwell in? I have not dwelt in a house from the day I brought the Israelites up out of Egypt to this day. I have been moving from place to place with the tent as my dwelling."
God basically says, "I never asked for a house."
Right. It subverts David's plan, but then God turns it around. Instead of David building God a house, temple.
God says he will build David a house.
Exactly. Not a physical building, but a dynasty, a lasting lineage. This is the Davidic covenant. It's absolutely foundational.
What are the key promises in this covenant? Why is it so important?
God promises several things. He will establish David's kingdom. David's own offspring will succeed him on the throne. That son will be the one to build the temple.
So the temple will be built, just not by David.
Correct. And crucially, God promises to establish the throne of David's kingdom forever. He says, "I will be his father and he will be my son." There's a promise of discipline if the son sins, but also this key line: "My steadfast love will never be taken away from him as I took it away from Saul."
Unlike Saul's dynasty, David's will endure. An eternal dynasty.
Yes. It's a promise of unending royal lineage and God's unwavering commitment to David's house. This becomes central to Israelite identity and future hope, pointing towards an ultimate eternal king from David's line.
How does David react to this incredible promise?
With profound humility and gratitude, he goes and sits before the Lord and just pours out his heart in prayer. "Who am I, sovereign Lord, and what is my family that you have brought me this far?" He's overwhelmed by God's grace and faithfulness.
It really grounds his kingship in divine promise, not just military might.
Absolutely. And speaking of might, the narrative then recounts a series of David's military victories. He defeats the Philistines, the Moabites, the Arameans under Hadadezer, the Edomites.
He establishes garrisons, takes tribute.
And the text repeats that refrain. The Lord gave David victory wherever he went. He consolidates and expands the kingdom significantly.
And how is he ruling domestically during this peak period?
He's portrayed very positively. David reigned over all Israel, doing what was just and right for all his people. The administration is well organized. Joab is still commander of the army. Jehoshaphat is recorder. Zadok and Ahimelech are priests, and so on. It shows a mature, functioning, and just kingdom.
It really feels like the golden age. Secure borders, justice at home, divine blessing. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, even at the zenith, perhaps especially at the zenith, comes the potential for a fall. And David's is monumental.
We have to talk about it. David and Bathsheba.
The story that changes everything. It starts, interestingly, with David not being where a king typically would be, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war.
Joab is out fighting the Ammonites.
But David remained in Jerusalem. That detail feels significant. He's idle, perhaps complacent.
And one evening, he's walking on the roof of his palace.
And he sees a woman bathing, a woman described as very beautiful.
He doesn't just admire from afar.
No, he sends someone to find out who she is. He's told she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite.
Uriah the Hittite. One of his own elite soldiers, one of his mighty men. He knows exactly who she is and who she's married to.
Yes, but that doesn't stop him. He sends messengers to get her. She comes to the palace. He sleeps with her.
A clear abuse of power.
Absolutely. And then Bathsheba sends word back to him. "I am pregnant."
Crisis. His sin is about to be exposed. What's his first move?
Cover up. He immediately sends a message to Joab. "Send me Uriah the Hittite."
Bring the husband home from the front lines.
The plan seems simple. Uriah comes home, sleeps with his wife, and everyone will assume the child is his. David greets Uriah, asks about the war, then tells him, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." Basically, go home, relax, be with your wife.
But Uriah doesn't.
No, Uriah sleeps at the entrance to the palace with the king's servants. He doesn't go home.
Why not?
When David asks him why, Uriah gives this incredibly noble answer. The ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing.
Wow. His integrity, his loyalty to his comrades, his sense of duty. It's a stunning contrast to David's actions.
It really highlights Uriah's character. David tries again. He invites Uriah to eat and drink with him, gets him drunk, hoping maybe then he'll go home.
Does it work?
No. Even drunk, Uriah sleeps at the palace entrance again. He still won't go home to his wife while his fellow soldiers are in the field.
David's cover-up plan has failed. Uriah's integrity is blocking him. So David resorts to something far darker.
Far darker. The next morning, David writes a letter to Joab, and he sends it by the hand of Uriah himself.
Uriah carries his own death warrant. What does the letter say?
It's chillingly direct. Put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him so he will be struck down and die.
He orders Joab to arrange Uriah's murder.
Yes. And Joab, loyal to David even in this, obeys. During the siege of Rabbah, he assigns Uriah to a place where he knows the enemy's strongest defenders are. David's men attack, Uriah is put in the front.
And then they pull back.
Joab ensures Uriah and a few others are isolated and killed by the Ammonites. Then Joab sends a messenger back to David to report on the battle.
How does Joab frame the news?
He tells the messenger to give David the full battle report. And if David gets angry about how the battle went, then the messenger should add, "Oh, and by the way, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead too." Almost like an afterthought, designed to appease the king's potential anger about military losses by confirming the success of the secret plan.
And David's response when he hears Uriah is dead?
It's disturbingly casual on the surface. He tells the messenger to tell Joab, "Don't let this thing trouble you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it." He basically says, casualties happen, carry on.
No sign of remorse.
Not publicly. After Bathsheba's period of mourning for Uriah is over, David brings her to his house, she becomes his wife, and she bears him a son. It seems like he got away with it. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. That's the crucial turning point. God saw everything.
And God sends Nathan the prophet.
Yes. Nathan comes to David, but he doesn't immediately accuse him. He tells him a story, a parable.
The parable of the rich man and the poor man's lamb.
Right. There's a rich man with huge flocks, and a poor man with nothing but one little ewe lamb that he loved like a daughter. A traveler comes to the rich man, and instead of taking one of his own sheep, the rich man takes the poor man's only lamb and prepares it for his guest.
How does David react to the story?
He's outraged. His sense of justice flares up. He declares, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity."
He condemns the man in the story utterly.
And then Nathan delivers that devastating line, "You are the man."
Chills. Just imagining that moment.
Nathan lays it all out. God gave David everything, Saul's kingdom, Saul's wives, and would have given him even more. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. Now, therefore, the sword will never depart from your house.
The consequences are laid bare. Not just personal guilt, but lasting damage to his family and kingdom.
Exactly. Nathan prophesies specifically, calamity will arise from David's own household. His own wives will be taken and shamed publicly, just as David acted in secret.
It's a direct, terrifying judgment. How does David respond now?
His response is immediate and simple. "I have sinned against the Lord." No excuses, no justifications, just a straightforward confession.
Is there forgiveness?
Nathan tells him, "The Lord has taken away your sin, you are not going to die." So God forgives the sin itself, spares David's life. But, Nathan adds, because by doing this you have shown utter contempt for the Lord, the son born to you will die.
The consequences remain. Even with forgiveness, the child will die.
Yes, and the child becomes ill. David pleads with God, fasts, lies on the ground all night. He desperately tries to change God's mind.
But the child dies.
On the 7th day, the child dies. David's servants are afraid to tell him, but he perceives it. And his reaction then is remarkable too. He gets up, washes, changes his clothes, goes to the house of the Lord and worships. Then he goes home and asks for food.
His servants are confused. He fasted while the child was alive, but now he's eating.
His explanation is profound. While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept. I thought, who knows? The Lord may be gracious to me and let the child live. But now that he is dead, why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him, but he will not return to me.
It shows this deep acceptance of God's will, even amidst heartbreak, a certain spiritual maturity gained through immense pain.
It really does. And significantly after this, David comforts Bathsheba, and she conceives again and gives birth to another son, Solomon. And the text adds, the Lord loved him and sent word through Nathan to name him Jedediah, which means loved by the Lord. It's a sign of God's continued grace and plan, even after such terrible sin and consequence.
Meanwhile, the war with the Ammonites concludes. Joab strategically calls David for the final capture of the city Rabbah.
So David gets the public credit. And the treatment of the defeated Ammonites is described as quite brutal, put to forced labor with saws, iron picks, and axes. It shows the harsh realities of warfare in that era.
But Nathan's prophecy about the sword never departing from David's house. That starts to unfold pretty quickly, doesn't it, within his own family?
Tragically, yes. The consequences ripple outward. We move into the story of Amnon, Tamar, and Absalom, the dark side of the royal family.
Amnon is David's eldest son, and he develops an obsession with his half-sister, Tamar.
Yes, Tamar is Absalom's full sister and described as beautiful. Amnon becomes sick with longing for her.
And he gets some terrible advice from his cousin Jonadab.
Jonadab is described as a very shrewd man. He figures out Amnon's obsession and concocts a plan. Amnon should pretend to be ill, and when David comes to see him, ask for Tamar to come and prepare food for him in his bedroom.
A setup.
A complete setup. David, unsuspecting, agrees. Tamar comes, prepares the food, but when she brings it to him, Amnon grabs her and says, "Come lie with me, my sister."
Tamar pleads with him, doesn't she? She calls it a wicked thing, an outrageous thing in Israel. She even suggests he ask David to let them marry.
She does. She appeals to reason, to morality, even offers a potential legitimate path. But Amnon is stronger and refuses to listen. He rapes her.
And then, immediately after, his obsessive love turns to
intense hatred, even stronger than the love he'd felt. He tells her, "Get up and get out." He has her thrown out and the door bolted behind her. It's just brutal and callous.
Tamar's reaction is one of utter devastation. She tears her robe, puts ashes on her head, and goes away weeping loudly. Public grief and shame.
And Absalom, her brother, sees her and understands immediately what happened. He tells her to be quiet for now, but the text says Absalom hated Amnon because he had disgraced his sister Tamar.
What about David? What does the king do when he hears about this?
The text says David was furious, but
he does nothing.
He does nothing. No punishment for Amnon, no justice for Tamar. This inaction is absolutely critical.
Why doesn't he act? Is it favoritism for his firstborn? Fear of tearing the family apart further?
The text doesn't explicitly say why, but his failure to act, to administer justice within his own house, allows the poison to spread. It validates Nathan's prophecy that calamity would come from his own household, and it allows Absalom's hatred to simmer.
For how long?
2 full years. Absalom nurses this grudge in silence. Then he plots his revenge.
How does he do it?
He organizes a big sheep-shearing festival, a time for celebration out in the country, and invites all the king's sons, including Amnon. David is hesitant to let Amnon go, but Absalom persuades him.
Another setup.
Yes. At the feast, when Amnon is in high spirits from wine, Absalom gives the signal to his men. They strike Amnon down and kill him.
Chaos ensues. The other sons flee, and the initial report back to David.
The initial false report is that Absalom has killed all the king's sons. David is plunged into grief, tearing his clothes, falling to the ground.
But Jonadab, the same shrewd cousin who advised Amnon.
He's there, and he corrects the report. Don't think they have killed all the king's sons, only Amnon is dead. He knew Absalom had been planning this since Tamar's rape.
So David's inaction led directly to this. One son murdered by another.
Exactly. And Absalom, he flees. He goes into exile to Geshur, his mother's homeland, and stays there for 3 years. David mourns for Amnon, but the text adds, eventually his grief subsided and he longed to go to Absalom. That complicated fatherly love is still there.
How does Absalom eventually come back?
It
involves Joab again, doesn't it?
Yes. Joab sees David's longing. He orchestrates a plan using a wise woman from Tekoa. She comes to David, pretending to be a widow whose one remaining son killed his brother, and now the clan wants to execute him, which would extinguish her husband's line entirely.
A parable, much like Nathan used.
Exactly. David promises to protect her son. The woman then skillfully pivots, applying the story to David's own situation with Absalom. She makes this eloquent argument about not letting the banished remain estranged, saying, God devises ways so that a banished person does not remain banished from his presence.
David realizes Joab's behind this.
He asks her directly, isn't the hand of Joab with you in all this? She admits it. David tells Joab, very well, I will do it. Go, bring back the young man Absalom.
So Absalom returns to Jerusalem. But is it a full reconciliation?
Not immediately. David allows him back, but says he must go to his own house, he must not see my face. So Absalom lives in Jerusalem for 2 full years without seeing the king.
2 years of being back, but still partly estranged. What breaks the deadlock?
Absalom gets impatient. He summons Joab, wanting him to intercede with the king, but Joab refuses to come. Absalom summons him again. Joab still refuses.
So Absalom takes drastic action.
He tells his servants, look, Joab's field is next to mine, and he has barley there. Go set it on fire.
He burns Joab's field.
Yes, and that finally gets Joab's attention. Joab comes demanding to know why, and Absalom says, look, I sent word to you, come here so I can send you to the king. What good is it for me to have come from Geshur? Now let me see the king's face. If I'm guilty of anything, let him put me to death.
Bold move. Does it work?
Joab relays the message. David summons Absalom. Absalom comes, bows down before the king, and David kisses Absalom, a sign of reconciliation.
Finally. But is Absalom truly reconciled in his heart? Or is this just another step in a plan?
The very next verses show it was likely strategic. Immediately after this reconciliation, Absalom starts his calculated campaign to usurp the throne.
How does he do it? What's his strategy?
First, the image. He gets himself a chariot, horses, and 50 men to run ahead of him, all the trappings of royalty. And he's described as incredibly handsome, no blemish in all Israel, from the sole of his foot to the top of his head, with famously thick hair. He looks the part.
And then the politics.
Pure populist strategy. He stands by the city gate early in the morning, intercepting anyone coming to the king for justice.
What does he tell them?
He listens to their case, tells them, look, your claims are valid and proper, but there's no representative of the king to hear you. Then he adds, if only I were appointed judge in the land, then everyone who has a complaint or case could come to me and I would give them justice.
Undermining David's administration, positioning himself as the accessible alternative.
Exactly. And when people bowed down to him, he'd reach out, take their hand, and kiss them. The text says, in this way, Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel.
Stole the hearts. That's a powerful phrase. It suggests David might have become somewhat distant, creating this vacuum Absalom exploited.
It's possible. Absalom cultivates this image for 4 years, building support. Then he makes his move. He tells David he needs to go to Hebron, David's old capital, to fulfill a vow he made to the Lord while in exile.
A religious pretext for rebellion.
Precisely. David, unsuspecting, says, go in peace. But Absalom has already sent secret messengers throughout Israel, saying, as soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then say Absalom is king in Hebron.
The rebellion is launched. How does David react when the news reaches him?
Word comes. The hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom. David's response is immediate. We must flee, or none of us will escape from Absalom. We must leave immediately, or he will move quickly to overtake us. He knows the danger.
So David flees Jerusalem, takes his household, his officials, his loyal guard, but leaves someone behind.
Yes, he leaves 10 concubines behind to take care of the palace. This becomes significant later.
It's a desperate flight and deeply emotional.
Very. He goes up the Mount of Olives, weeping as he goes, barefoot, head covered in grief and shame. All the people with him are weeping too.
But even in this low moment, there are signs of loyalty. Ittai the Gittite.
Ah, Ittai. A foreigner, a Philistine mercenary perhaps, relatively new to David's service. David tries to send him back, saying, why should you come with us? Go back. You are a foreigner in exile.
But Ittai refuses.
His loyalty is incredible, he swears. As surely as the Lord lives, and as my lord the king lives, whatever my lord the king may be, whether it means life or death, there will your servant be. He throws his lot in completely with David.
That must have been a huge encouragement. David also learns that his trusted counselor, Ahithophel, has joined Absalom.
Yes, that's a massive blow. Ahithophel's counsel was considered almost like the word of God. David's immediate reaction is a prayer. O Lord, turn Ahithophel's counsel into foolishness.
And then he comes up with a counterplan involving another loyal friend, Hushai the Archite.
Right. Hushai meets David, distraught. David tells him, if you go with me, you'll be a burden. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, I will be your servant, your majesty. I used to serve your father, but now I will serve you. Then you can help me by frustrating Ahithophel's advice.
A spy in Absalom's inner circle. Cunning.
Very. Hushai agrees and goes back to Jerusalem, arriving just as Absalom enters the city.
Meanwhile, David's flight continues, and it's not easy. He encounters Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, Jonathan's son.
Ziba meets David with donkeys laden with supplies. When David asks where Mephibosheth is, Ziba claims Mephibosheth stayed in Jerusalem, saying, "Today the house of Israel will give me back my grandfather's kingdom."
Slandering his master. And David believes him.
In the stress of the moment, yes. David tells Ziba, "All that belonged to Mephibosheth is now yours." A rash judgment based on deceit.
Then comes Shimei.
Shimei, a man from Saul's clan. He comes out, follows David along the ridge, cursing him, throwing stones and dirt. Get out, you man of blood, you scoundrel. The Lord has repaid you for all the blood you shed from the house of Saul."
Blaming David for Saul's downfall. Abishai, Joab's brother, wants to cut off Shimei's head immediately.
But David's response is remarkable. He stops Abishai. "What does this have to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? If he is cursing because the Lord said to him, 'Curse David,' who can ask, 'Why did you do that?' Leave him alone. Let him curse, for the Lord has told him to.
Right.
It may be that the Lord will look upon my misery and restore to me his covenant blessing instead of his curse today."
Incredible restraint. He sees even this cursing as potentially part of God's purpose or discipline. Humility in the face of intense provocation.
It really is striking. Meanwhile, back in Jerusalem, Absalom is settling in. Hushai presents himself, pledging loyalty. Absalom accepts him.
And Ahithophel gives his first piece of advice. What is it?
It's shocking and strategically brutal. He tells Absalom, "Sleep with your father's concubines, whom he left to take care of the palace. Then all Israel will hear that you have made yourself obnoxious to your father, and the hands of everyone with you will be strengthened."
Publicly shame David and make the split absolutely irreparable.
Exactly. It's a symbolic act of taking possession of the kingship. They pitch a tent on the palace roof, the very roof David might have stood on when he saw Bathsheba, and Absalom goes into his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel.
Directly fulfilling Nathan's prophecy.
Directly, the consequences of David's sin playing out horribly.
What's Ahithophel's next piece of advice? The military strategy.
He advises immediate action. "Let me choose 12,000 men and set out tonight in pursuit of David. I will attack him while he is weary and weak. I will strike down only the king and bring all the people back to you."
Decapitation strike. Kill David. The rebellion is over quickly. Tactically, it sounds like good advice.
Very good advice. David is vulnerable at this point. But Absalom decides to also ask Hushai what he thinks.
This is Hushai's moment. David's spy.
Right. Hushai plays his part perfectly. He says, the advice Ahithophel has given is not good this time. He reminds Absalom how fierce David and his men are, like a wild bear robbed of her cubs. He argues that David won't be easily caught, and if Absalom's forces suffer even a small initial defeat, morale will collapse.
So what's Hushai's counterproposal?
Delay and massive force. My advice is, let all Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, as numerous as the sand on the seashore, be gathered to you, with you yourself leading them into battle. We will attack him wherever he may be found. He and not one of his men will be left alive.
It sounds grander, more decisive, maybe appealing to Absalom's ego, but it gives David crucial time.
Exactly. And the text gives us the divine perspective. Absalom and his men think Hushai's advice is better than Ahithophel's. Why? For the Lord had determined to frustrate the good advice of Ahithophel in order to bring disaster on Absalom. David's prayer is being answered.
Hushai immediately needs to warn David.
Yes, he secretly sends word via the priests, Zadok and Abiathar, whose sons Jonathan and Ahimaaz are waiting outside the city. They are told, "Do not spend the night at the fords of the wilderness. Cross over without fail, or the king and all the people with him will be swallowed up."
There's a dramatic chase, isn't there? The messengers are spotted.
Yes. A boy sees them and tells Absalom. They flee and hide in a well in Bahurim. A woman covers the well opening, spreads grain over it, making it look like a threshing floor. Absalom's men come asking, she misdirects them, and the messengers escape.
They get the warning to David.
They do, and David and all the people with him get up and cross the Jordan River. By daybreak, everyone has crossed safely.
What happens to Ahithophel when he realizes his advice wasn't taken?
When Ahithophel saw his counsel wasn't followed, he saddled his donkey, went home to his town, put his affairs in order, and hanged himself.
Suicide. His influence was everything to him.
It seems so. His rejection was a political death sentence, and perhaps he saw the inevitable failure of the rebellion now. His death underscores the immense weight and consequence attached to political counsel in that world.
Absalom, meanwhile, appoints Amasa, his cousin, as commander of the army, replacing Joab.
Another slight to Joab, setting up future conflict. Absalom crosses the Jordan with his army, pursuing David. David reaches Mahanaim, where he and his exhausted followers are met with incredible kindness and support, bedding, basins, food, supplies from local loyalists, including Barzillai the Gileadite.
This must have been a huge relief. It shows David still has significant support.
Definitely. It sustains them for the coming confrontation.
The final battle. David organizes his forces under Joab, Abishai, and Ittai the Gittite. He wants to go out with them, but
his men refuse. You must not go out. If we are forced to flee, they won't care about us. But you are worth 10,000 of us. It is better that you remain in the city to give us support. They insist on protecting him, the lamp of Israel.
So David stays back, but he gives one overriding command to his commanders.
A command that reveals his father's heart even now. Be gentle with the young man Absalom for my sake. And the text emphasizes, all the troops heard the king give this order to his commanders concerning Absalom.
Everyone knew David wanted his son spared.
Yes. The battle is joined in the forest of Ephraim. It's a decisive victory for David's forces. The terrain itself seems to work against Absalom's army. The text says, the forest devoured more people that day than the sword.
And then comes Absalom's infamous end. Not exactly heroic.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Absalom is riding his mule, and the mule goes under the thick branches of a large oak tree. Absalom's head, perhaps his famously long hair, gets caught fast in the oak. The mule keeps going, and Absalom is left.
Just hanging there between heaven and earth.
Exactly. One of David's men sees him, reports it to Joab, saying, I saw Absalom hanging in an oak tree.
What does Joab say? He knows David's order.
Joab asks why the man didn't strike him down immediately, offering a reward. The man replies, even if I were receiving 1,000 shekels, I would not lift my hand against the king's son. We heard the king command you, protect the young man Absalom for my sake.
The soldier obeyed David, but
Joab says, I'm not going to waste time like this with you. He takes 3 javelins in his hand and plunges them into Absalom's heart while he is still alive, hanging in the oak. Then 10 of Joab's own armor-bearers surround Absalom and finish him off.
Direct defiance of David's explicit order. Joab puts the perceived needs of the kingdom, or maybe his own judgment, above the king's command.
Absolutely. It's Joab being Joab, ruthless, decisive, and willing to disobey even the king when he thinks it's necessary. Absalom's body is taken down, thrown into a large pit in the forest, and a huge pile of rocks is heaped over it. A stark contrast to the monument Absalom had erected for himself because he had no son to carry on his name.
Now the news has to get back to David. Who takes it?
Ahimaaz, the priest's son who helped warn David, wants to run, but Joab holds him back, saying the news isn't good, and sends a Cushite runner instead. Ahimaaz insists, though, and Joab eventually lets him go too. Ahimaaz is faster and arrives first.
David is waiting anxiously at the city gate. He sees the runner coming.
David asks Ahimaaz, is the young man Absalom all right? Ahimaaz hedges. He says he saw a disturbance but didn't know what it was.
Then the Cushite arrives. David asks him the same question. Is the young man Absalom all right?
The Cushite answers, more directly, but still perhaps trying to soften it. May the enemies of my lord the king and all who rise up to harm you be like that young man.
David understands immediately. Absalom is dead.
The king is shaken. He goes up to the room over the gateway and weeps. And as he goes, he cries out those unforgettable words, oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom. If only I had died instead of you, oh, Absalom, my son, my son.
It's just raw, devastating grief. A father's heartbreak completely overwhelming the victory.
His grief is so intense that the victory celebration turns into mourning. The soldiers hear the king is grieving for his son, and they sneak back into the city quietly, like defeated troops, not victors.
This creates another crisis, doesn't it? The king's personal grief is undermining the army's morale and the stability of his restored reign.
It does. And who steps in to confront David?
It has to be Joab.
It's Joab. He goes to the king's house and delivers an absolutely brutal, unflinching rebuke. Today you have humiliated all your men, who have just saved your life and the lives of your sons and daughters and your wives and concubines. You love those who hate you and hate those who love you.
Wow. He doesn't pull any punches.
None. He accuses David of showing that his commanders and men mean nothing to him. It seems to me that if Absalom were alive and all of us were dead today, you would be pleased. Now go out and encourage your men. I swear by the Lord, if you don't go out, not a man will be left with you by nightfall. This will be worse for you than all the calamities that have come upon you from your youth till now.
It's incredibly harsh, but maybe necessary.
It highlights Joab's essential, if brutal, role. He's the reality check. He forces David to put aside his personal grief and fulfill his duty as king, to acknowledge the men who risked their lives for him. It's about the survival of the kingdom.
And David listens.
He does. He gets up and sits in the gateway. When the troops hear the king is there, they all come before him. Joab's harsh words work. David resumes his role as king.
But bringing the kingdom back together isn't simple. There's division among the tribes about bringing David back as king.
Yes, Israel is hesitant, arguing among themselves. Judah, David's own tribe, seems particularly slow to welcome him back.
So David makes a strategic move to win over Judah.
He sends word to the priests Zadok and Abiathar to ask the elders of Judah, "Why are you the last to bring the king back to his palace?" And then he makes a stunning offer. He tells them to say to Amasa, Absalom's commander, his own nephew, "Are you not my own flesh and blood? May God deal with me if you are not the commander of my army for life in place of Joab."
He offers the top military job to the man who led the rebellion against him, sidelining Joab. Why?
It's a massive political gamble to win back Judah's loyalty by appointing one of their own, and a relative, to the most powerful position. It emphasizes kinship over past rebellion. And perhaps it's also David's way of finally dealing with Joab, whom he couldn't control but maybe now can replace.
Does it work?
It sways the hearts of the men of Judah. They send word for David to return. As David crosses the Jordan back towards Jerusalem, we see a series of encounters, like reconciliations.
Shimei, the man who cursed him, comes begging for forgiveness.
Yes, with 1,000 Benjamites. Abishai still wants to kill him, but David rebukes Abishai again and swears an oath to Shimei, "You shall not die." He shows mercy.
And Mephibosheth meets him too.
Yes, Mephibosheth comes, looking unkempt, having not cared for himself since David fled. He explains that Ziba deceived him, saddled the donkeys, and left without him. He expresses loyalty.
Does David believe him now? How does he resolve the Ziba situation?
David seems to accept Mephibosheth's explanation, but his decision is maybe a bit ambiguous or weary. "Why say more? I have decided that you and Ziba shall divide the land." Mephibosheth humbly replies, "Let him take it all, now that my lord the king has arrived home safely." His loyalty seems genuine.
And Barzillai, the elderly Gileadite who helped David.
David invites Barzillai to come live with him in Jerusalem. Barzillai declines due to old age, but sends his servant, or perhaps son, Kimham, in his place, asking David to show favor to him. David agrees. It shows David rewarding loyalty.
But even as he returns, there's tension brewing again between the tribes.
Yes. The men of Israel, the northern tribes, argue with the men of Judah. "We have 10 shares in the king, and besides, we have a greater claim on David than you. Why then did you treat us with contempt? Were we not the first to speak of bringing back our king?" The men of Judah respond harshly. That old north-south division is right there, ready to flare up again.
And it does, almost immediately, with Sheba, son of Bichri.
Right. A Benjamite troublemaker named Sheba blows a trumpet and shouts, "We have no share in David, no part in Jesse's son, every man to his tents, Israel." He leads the northern tribes away in another rebellion.
So much for unity. David is back in Jerusalem, but the kingdom is fractured again. He also deals with the concubines left behind.
Yes, the 10 concubines Absalom had publicly violated. David has them put in seclusion, provided for, but essentially living as widows for the rest of their lives. A sad, permanent reminder of Absalom's rebellion and David's shame.
How does David handle Sheba's rebellion? He tells Amasa, his newly appointed commander,
to summon the men of Judah within 3 days. But Amasa takes longer than expected.
and this delay gives Joab his opening.
David tells Abishai, Joab's brother, to take the king's men and pursue Sheba before he can fortify himself. Joab goes along with Abishai and the elite troops. They meet Amasa at Gibeon.
And Joab does what Joab does.
Exactly. Joab greets Amasa, seemingly friendly. "How are you, my brother?" He takes Amasa's beard with his right hand as if to kiss him. Amasa doesn't notice the dagger in Joab's left hand. Joab stabs him in the stomach, spilling his intestines onto the ground. Kills him with one blow.
Ruthless.
Yeah?
Joab just takes back command of the army by murdering his replacement.
Just like that. He leaves Amasa bleeding in the road and shouts, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, let him follow Joab." The army follows him, pursues Sheba to the northern city of Abel-Beth-Makkah.
How does that rebellion end?
Joab besieges the city, but a wise woman from the city calls out to Joab. They negotiate. She points out the folly of destroying a historic Israelite city. Joab says he just wants Sheba. The woman promises to deliver Sheba's head.
Yeah, she does.
She persuades the townspeople. They cut off Sheba's head and throw it over the wall to Joab. Joab sounds the trumpet, the army disperses, and the rebellion is over.
And the final listing of David's officials after this.
Joab is once again listed as commander over the entire army of Israel. Despite David's attempt to replace him, Joab's power is undeniable and reasserted.
The narrative then shifts to deal with some remaining issues and reflections. There's a 3-year famine.
David inquires of the Lord why. The answer comes back. It is on account of Saul and his blood-stained house. It is because he put the Gibeonites to death.
The Gibeonites, weren't they the people Joshua made a treaty with centuries earlier?
Yes. Israel had sworn an oath to protect them. Saul, however, in his zeal, had tried to annihilate them, breaking that ancient covenant. Now, years later, the consequences are surfacing as famine.
What do the Gibeonites demand as restitution?
David asks them what they want. They don't want money. They demand 7 of Saul's male descendants be handed over to them to be executed before the Lord at Gibeah, Saul's hometown, a form of corporate justice for the broken covenant.
A chilling request. Does David agree?
He does, but he spares Mephibosheth, Jonathan's son, because of the oath he swore to Jonathan. He hands over 2 sons of Rizpah, Saul's concubine, and 5 sons of Merab, Saul's daughter.
They are executed and their bodies exposed. And Rizpah.
Rizpah performs this incredibly poignant act of grief and defiance. She spreads sackcloth for herself on a rock and stays there from the beginning of the harvest until the rains come months later, guarding the bodies day and night, keeping birds and wild animals away.
A mother's vigil. Word gets back to David.
When David hears what Rizpah has done, he's moved. He arranges to collect the bones of Saul and Jonathan, which the men of Jabesh-Gilead had rescued, and also the bones of the 7 who were just executed. He gives them all a proper burial together in the tomb of Kish, Saul's father. After this act of reconciliation and respect for the dead, the text says, God answered prayer in behalf of the land. The famine ends.
We also get accounts of more battles with the Philistines, sort of appendices to David's reign. David himself is almost killed in one battle.
Yes, by a giant named Ishbi-Benob. But Abishai comes to his rescue and kills the giant. After that, David's men make him swear, never again will you go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished. His fighting days are over.
But his men continue fighting giants, and there's that interesting detail about Elhanan.
Right, Elhanan, one of David's mighty men, is credited here with killing Goliath the Gittite. It's a detail that scholars debate. Contrasting with the more famous story in 1 Samuel, it might refer to a different Goliath or be a variant tradition.
It reminds us these ancient texts can have complex layers. The book then includes David's great song of deliverance.
Yes, a powerful song, very similar to Psalm 18. It's David looking back over his life, praising God as his rock, fortress, deliverer, who rescued him from enemies, empowered him for battle. It's a deep insight into his personal faith and how he attributed his success to God's intervention.
And after the song, we get David's last words.
An oracle, a prophetic utterance about righteous rule, about God's everlasting covenant with his house, contrasting the flourishing righteous ruler with the fate of worthless men. It's a final testament to his understanding of kingship under God.
But there's one more major event before the end of 2 Samuel, the census. Why does David take a census, and why is it presented as a sin?
The text starts ominously. Again, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, Go and take a census of Israel and Judah. It's complex. God is angry, but David is incited. Joab strongly objects to the census. May the Lord your God multiply the troops 100 times over, but why does my lord the king want to do such a thing?
Joab sees something wrong with it. What might be the issue? Pride. Trusting in military numbers instead of God. Violating a taboo.
It could be any or all of those. Taking a census, especially of fighting men, could imply reliance on human strength rather than divine protection. It might have been seen as asserting ownership over the people in a way that belonged only to God. Whatever the reason, David overrides Joab's objections.
The census is taken. The numbers are reported. 800,000 fighting men in Israel, 500,000 in Judah. Huge numbers. And David's reaction.
Immediately after, David is conscience-stricken. He confesses to the Lord, I have sinned greatly in what I have done. I have done a very foolish thing. He knows he messed up.
God sends the prophet Gad to David with 3 options for punishment.
3 choices. 3 years of famine, 3 months of fleeing from enemies, or 3 days of plague in the land.
A terrible choice. Which does David pick?
David says, I am in deep distress. Let us fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is great, but do not let me fall into human hands. He chooses the plague.
And the plague is devastating.
70,000 people die across Israel. The destroying angel reaches Jerusalem, hand outstretched, but the Lord relents, tells the angel, enough, withdraw your hand.
David sees the angel and his response.
He intercedes powerfully for the people, taking personal responsibility. I am the one who has sinned and done wrong. These are but sheep. What have they done? Let your hand fall on me and my family.
Gad then tells David to build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite, the very spot where the plague was stopped.
David goes to Araunah. Araunah sees the king coming and offers everything: the threshing floor, the oxen for the sacrifice, the wood from the threshing sledges for free.
A generous offer.
Yes.
But David refuses.
Yes. David insists on paying. He says that famous line, "No, I insist on paying you for it. I will not sacrifice to the Lord my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing."
A profound understanding of sacrifice. It has to cost you something to be meaningful worship.
Exactly. David buys the threshing floor and the oxen, builds the altar, offers sacrifices, and the Lord answers prayer. The plague on Israel is stopped. It's a powerful final story about sin, consequence, repentance, intercession, and the nature of true worship.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into 2 Samuel, what a journey. We've seen this incredibly deep, complex tapestry of King David's life.
From shepherd to king, that meteoric rise.
Then the agonizing personal failings, Bathsheba, Uriah. The devastating family betrayals, the grief over Amnon, over Absalom.
Constant warfare, internal strife, yet also these moments of incredible triumph and divine blessing, like the Davidic covenant.
And through it all, this unwavering, though sometimes deeply flawed, devotion to the Lord. We really do see a king of immense power.
And profound vulnerability.
Yeah. It feels like David's story isn't just about a king's history. It's about the human experience, isn't it? Navigating power, temptation, sin, forgiveness.
And the enduring consequences of our choices, both personal and political. His life really is a testament to the impact of leadership, for good and ill, and that complex dance between human action and divine will.
So here's something for you, our listeners, to think about as you reflect on David's journey. How might David's story challenge our modern ideas about leadership and accountability?
Especially his willingness sometimes to face the consequences, like with the census, or eventually confessing about Bathsheba, and those profound expressions of grief and humility.
What does it really mean to be, as the later tradition calls him, a man after God's own heart, when that same heart was capable of such incredible greatness, but also such profound, damaging error?
A lot to chew on there. It's the complexity that makes this story so enduring, I think. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep getting well informed.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.